When the holidays start to feel a bit repetitive, reach for a Sprite Winter Spiced Cranberry and put your twist on tradition. A bold cranberry and winter spice flavor fusion, Sprite Winter Spiced Cranberry is a refreshing way to shake things up this sipping season. And only for a limited time. Sprite. Obey your thirst.
This episode is brought to you by Indeed. You're ready to move your business forward, but first, you need to find the right team. Start your search with Indeed Sponsored Jobs. It can help you reach qualified candidates fast, ensuring your listing is the first one they see. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs are 90% more likely to report a hire than non-sponsored jobs. See the results for yourself. Get a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
Welcome to the Dr. Raj podcast with Dr. Raj Dasgupta, a show all about educating patients, students, and aspiring doctors about better patient care. Dr. Raj is a quadruple board-certified physician and associate professor at the University of Southern California. He was a co-host of the TNT series Chasing the Cure with Ann Curry, as well as a regular on the TV show The Doctors. And now, here's our show.
Hi, and welcome to the Dr. Raj podcast. And what is this a podcast of? Of happiness, of wellness, of amazing people, of just great stories. And I gotta tell you, everyone, today I'm kind of fired up for a few things because my guest is all about my jam, which is what? Teaching others, teaching medical students, people in the healthcare profession. And this person is a CEO, and I always get kind of pumped up for CEOs, but that's not the most special part about my guest. The most special part about my guest is that despite being a CEO, he went back to med school, and that I love. I love a story like that because everyone talks about their passion about how much they love medicine. But hey, this is put your money where your mouth is. And I just love this story so much. So my guest today, his name is Shiv, his first name. But, let me do a little background for him. Okay, I have to read the bio. Shiv Gaglani is currently a medical student at Johns Hopkins School of Medicine. He began his MD career in 2011 before taking leave to earn his MBA from Harvard Business School in 2016 and became the co-founder and chief executive officer of Osmosis, a leading health education platform with an audience literally of millions of current and future clinicians, as well as their patients and family members, which was acquired by Elsevier in late 2021. Shiv's primary passion is developing innovative and scalable solutions in the fields of healthcare and education. To this end, he curated the smartphone physical, which debuted at TEDMED, and the Patient Promise, a movement to improve clinician-patient relationships through partnership in pursuing healthy lifestyle behaviors. Shiv is also an avid writer who has written 2 educational books, Success with Science and Standing Out on the SAT and ACT. He is a regular contributor to Forbes, which named him to their 30 under 30 list in 2018. That just sounds like a cool list to be part of. And growing up, and from there, oh my God, there's so much more. But let me stop right there for now and say, Shiv, thank you for being on the podcast. And how are you doing today?
Dr. Raj, thanks for having me. I'm doing really well. It's an honor to be on your podcast.
Oh, thank you. I mean, I don't even know where to begin. I got this whole list of preparation questions over here, but let's just start with the background. So, I'm just kind of looking at you. We share kind of the same hairstyle. You have a little brownish tinge to you. So what is your background?
Yeah, I'm South Asian. My family's all from India. We're Sindhi, so my grandparents were refugees from Pakistan to India during the partition in 1947.
Okay.
And my parents have immigrated twice. Or multiple times. They went from India to sub-Saharan Africa, Namibia, where I was born, and then South Africa, where I grew up for 5 years, and then they immigrated again to Florida, where I spent most of my time growing up there. And again, we can talk about this because we're brown. I come from a very healthcare background. My dad's a retired general practitioner. My mom's a physical therapist, and my sister's a dentist. So I'm sort of the black sheep who did not finish med school, but obviously was part of why I've gone back to hopefully finish this time around.
Well, at least your teeth will be great, and you'll be in physical fitness from that. But I love it now. Because now, Shiv just interviewed me for his amazing podcast, so I get to touche these questions. So growing up, Shiv, what were your ambitions? And I got to ask this, did you always want to be an entrepreneur, doctor? Can you give me a little bit of that history there?
Yeah. So growing up, my dad ran a hospital in South Africa. And so I would actually go with him to his hospital. I was young, 3, 4, 5. But I have some memories of this where I would play with patients in the childcare ward, right? Kids who had burns or hydrocephalus. And, I really enjoyed that. They were just other kids to me who obviously, when I saw my dad treating them with their parents or family around them, I just saw how much respect, how much happiness he was able to give them by being there, how much it just really struck with me. And so I think genuinely I became very interested in being able to have that type of impact myself. And so really was interested in medicine from that age. But as I grew up, obviously other interests started becoming clear. I moved to Cape Canaveral, Florida, where rockets and shuttles were taking off pretty regularly. And I was like, that is pretty cool. I think on the previous podcast, we talked about our shared love for Star Wars. I was sci-fi geek too. I was like, wow, that's kind of cool. I could maybe go into engineering or aerospace or biomedical engineering. And I met this astronaut named David Wolf, Dr. David Wolf. And he is an MD who went to space and was running all these experiments. And, how do we age in space? What happens to our bones? Can we engineer tissue in space? That kind of stuff. So I was just fascinated, and that got me really interested in biomedical engineering, which then is what I majored in college. And I went to med school with this intention of becoming a surgeon, building medical devices or tissue engineering for organ transplants. But I realized along the way that I was much more kind of in my bones. I like creating things. I love connecting ideas to ideas between fields. I love connecting ideas to people, and I like connecting people to people. And it's actually my namesake. Last name is Gaglani, but if you do a anagram of that, ganglia. So my personal, and it's kind of like everything is the stories we tell ourselves, and my whole shtick has been ganglia. That's actually the name of my holding company, Ganglia Ventures. Cool. And it's all about how do we connect the dots, connect things to create. And so that's inherent to who I am. And you read in the bio, or you shared in the bio, Osmosis, Patient Promise, Smartphone Physical. That's what I like to do.
I've been waiting to ask this. You're in medical school, in a wonderful medical school. So what led to your decision to leave medical school? Do you know how hard it is to get in it? And you're in a wonderful one. And you went on, don't get me wrong. I'm really happy, and it's a privilege that you got your MBA from Harvard. What was it, a hard decision? What put me in your shoes right at that time?
Yeah, definitely a scary decision. Luckily de-risked quite a bit, because it was getting more and more popular for students to take time off to pursue joint degrees or PhDs or take a gap year for health reasons. And fortunately at Hopkins, there were some other students above over the couple of years above us who were taking time off to try their hand at entrepreneurship and digital health. It was like the first wave of digital health. And there were a lot of low risk kind of incubators that you could do, ranging from Y Combinator to Dream It Health, which we did, to Blueprint Health, to Rock Health. And so they gave us funding to take this idea and keep growing it. But the real impetus for building Osmosis was something that I think everyone who's studied, everyone who's been a student, let alone a medical student, faces, which is that you forget things very quickly after learning them. And so my co-founder, his last name's Haynes, my last name's Gaglani, we were randomly assorted through a very non-original Hopkins sorting algorithm into the same anatomy group. And he had a PhD in neuroscience. I had written educational books, and we started talking about this problem that we faced, which was we're learning all this stuff, drinking from a fire hose, all those cliches, and we're really, we're spending so much time learning this stuff and then forgetting it within weeks. And so we did what any nerdy med students would do. We did a literature review and said, okay, what's like the evidence of how we should be learning so we remember things better? Came across things like spaced repetition, memory palaces, test enhanced learning. And then we started just working on building it ourselves. Like, let's build a platform that incorporates all these different things, crowdsourcing, peer-to-peer teaching. And it got a lot of love and traction at Hopkins Med. And then students at other schools who were friends with our classmates wanted to use it. So that gave us the push to go take this gap year. And it was a bit earlier than I expected, because I knew I was going to do an MBA at HBS, but I was just, let me take time earlier and see where we can go with this company, and the rest is history, as they say.
So what year in med school were you when you decided to take that gap year or time off, whatever it is?
Finished my preclinical curriculum, so the first, 20 months of med school.
So wow. So you finished the basic science part.
Pretty much, yeah.
You left during the best part. It was the clinical part, man.
I know. That's why I'm back, because I feel like I missed out. I was short-shrifted.
So let me get this straight. So so before you left, you already had Osmosis kind of cooking a little bit. You already were making the videos and stuff like that.
Not the videos. We had a learning platform that was, kind of, now that AI is all the rage, it was kind of interesting because we were starting to build in some of these very cool machine learning tools. So, for example, if you have a professor who's teaching you a lecture on cystic fibrosis,
sure,
the professor can upload that lecture to Osmosis. It's a private group, so it's still their rights, still their copyright. And then we'd automatically parse what's in that lecture, looking at the word counts and what are the diseases that come up. And we start recommending content. These questions, this textbook, this Elsevier, this is how we got to know Elsevier, this page in an Elsevier textbook, or this video from Khan Academy. And that's how we got to know the Khan Academy Health and Medicine team, which then eventually joined us. And now we're most well known for our unique video style. Yeah. But initially, Osmosis was just a machine learning driven educational platform.
So, it's funny because when I think of you folks, I think of you have these amazing short videos are around, 5 to 10 minutes. They're cartoons. They always have a nice little theme to it. So, no, I love what you guys do. And I got to tell you, a huge fan. And when I'm doing my, hey, what are you learning to pass your boards or USMLE? No, one of Osmosis name usually is kind of like on there. You know what I mean? Or someone will say to me, but Dr. Raj, Osmosis says. I'm like, oh, Osmosis.
Oh no, we've got to make sure we work together on that stuff. So yeah, if there's ever discrepancies, we should be fixing that.
No, you guys are great. And so you got your business degree, and would you say the transition, even though you set it up nicely, was it hard to go from you're ready to see patients, you're in, you fit past your phys, your pharm, now it's not doing any of this stuff? Was it a hard transition to go fully into business mode?
Not as much, because there are a lot of shared similarities, I think, between what you learn when you're seeing a patient, like the bedside manners courses we took during preclinical, and just being a fully functioning adult human in a workplace. And so, are you empathetic? Do you listen? Do you spread joy? As I said, one of our core values. And so really it was good training, I think, to just be a good listener and to understand what people want. And frankly, I was ready. I mean, the preclinical curriculum was, Hopkins is a great school, but it was a decade ago. It was death by PowerPoint, tons of lectures. I was ready to try something new and be more experiential. And Osmosis had so much traction and excitement behind it that it wasn't that hard to be like, oh, like rug was pulled out of me, under me, because I always knew I'd want to go back. I just didn't know it would be a decade.
Well, before I ask those questions, hey, just out of curiosity, why is it called Osmosis? Who came up with that?
Great question. Yeah. Two reasons. One is, you ask people, there's already that joke of, I wish I could learn by osmosis, right? So like there's a comic of Garfield with textbooks strapped to his head, and then the concentration gradient goes from the book to his head. Unfortunately, the way osmosis works, it would be eventually, only half the knowledge to go in, right? And then maybe knowledge would flow the other way. There's a semi-permeable membrane. So that aside, we wanted it to be something that was easy to learn. And right, like that's why, again, you have this lecture on cystic fibrosis on August 9th. August 10th, you're getting a push notification to your phone with a question on cystic fibrosis, right? Okay. That's like the magic of Osmosis, right? But the second reason is that the actual company name is knowledge diffusion, right? Because we realized knowledge diffuses not just from teacher or sage on a stage to student, but between students, right? We're teaching each other. And really one of the first things I did for Osmosis was I would literally write questions, short practice questions. I would text it to my friends in med school and then text back answers. So it'd be like a gamified version of learning. And then some other friend would write questions for another lecture. And so we'd really crowdsource questions. And that's essentially one of the second reason we call it Osmosis, was this knowledge diffusion concept.
I like it. So I'm excited to ask about how's it going now that you're back in med school, So, I just finished doing some stuff with some medical students before I'm on this podcast. So how's it being a medical student now? And I guess my question is, I look at you as Shiv, the CEO, Shiv, my bud. You're me and you're you. But do they treat you differently because you're not just your generic medic? I just feel bad, scolding you. Do they treat you differently?
I've gotten a little bit of that, right? Like obviously some of my classmates and faculty have used Osmosis. And so that's nice, where it's like, oh, like, how is it? Like a little bit of the fanboy, fangirling stuff, just a little bit, right? Enough to inflate the ego. And then I have to do a lot of work to like squash it again. Number two is like the stress of being a med student. I'm 34 now. Like the stress of going back to med school after having sort of already proven myself in a way that I had no expectations of, but I'm really happy how it happened, is much lower, right? Like I feel like I'm not gunning to be a neurosurgery resident. Like if neurosurgery is something I want to pursue, hopefully I'll get in. I'll have to work really hard to do it, but I'm not like stressed out young 20s person the same way, where I feel like things are zero-sum games and there's only so many spots, so it's a zero-sum thing. I'm much more collaborative. I feel like I've proven myself. And I'm not that worried about a lot of the original, things that stress med students out right now. The other piece is I was literally just on a call with a Hopkins orthopedic surgeon today, who's asking my advice for a company he's starting as well. I love that. Like this one reason I like to go back is like I've met so many current and future medical professionals and nursing professionals who are entrepreneurial by nature too. They see problems. We all have eyes. We all have ears. You see problems in the healthcare system. But like a lot of times they just don't know much. Oftentimes it's self-induced, this lack of competence or confidence, where they're like, oh, I have to get an MBA. I need a business person. Yesterday, literally, I was talking to a psychiatrist at Harvard who feels like she's not a good business person and needs to hire someone else to do business for her. Or I'm like, no, like you're incredible. Like you can do this. You've became a psychiatrist at Harvard. Like you're able to do this. So people can just learn things on the go. And I think that's one of the privileges of being back in med school, is like I have something more to offer than just kind of bright eyes and bushy tail going into medicine.
And it puts a smile on my face because when students are with me in the medical ICU, you present the patient, I ask you questions, what would you do next? I'm just trying to imagine you with me in the ICU. So the first conversation will be, so Shiv, why don't you give me your history and physical? Ask you some questions, and my follow-up will be, and if you don't mind, I'm going to send you my CV because I have a new idea. But I wanted to ask you, so far, what's been your favorite clinical rotation?
So I was supposed to do OB-GYN this summer, but I wound up schedule shifted and I wound up doing an elective on psychedelics working with people who are doing psychedelic assisted therapy. Yeah. I've also done an AI elective. So my first real hardcore rotation begins later this year, psych neuro. So I actually haven't even gotten there. And I wrote an article for Forbes a couple of months ago, why I'm going back to med school. And in it, I was pretty clear too. I gave 6 reasons, and we all like to have rationalizations. But I really did some soul searching, and I feel like those were the core reasons. One of the things I make clear, and I want to make clear in your podcast too, is I've gone back with the full intent of finishing and actually, finally making my parents proud. That's small. That's my intent. But I also know that, I like creating things. And, there are already some problems I've seen and gone into med school with, knowing that exists, that I'm very excited about doing. So it's very possible that I may wind up zigzagging again, or maybe not even finishing. It just really depends. I want to, but it's not, I don't want to be too arrogant and like, I'm going to will this medical degree to existence, regardless of what makes the most sense in this present moment.
Well, you know what? I want to influence you with some osmosis and say, I sense, I'm trying to touch you through my computer screen, that internal medicine is your future. I just feel it. You like asking the question why. Osmosis is all about my favorite question, why. And it's just the foundation. So I hope you really enjoy it. You know what I mean? And I think you will.
Oh, Hilton stay, your beds are soft and cozy. No lumpy couch, no stiff futon, no shower line at crack of dawn. Oh, Hilton stay, a holiday you're saving.
When you want holiday comfort you can count on, it matters where you stay. This season, enjoy spacious, comfortable rooms and friendly service when you book with Hilton instead. Hilton for the stay.
Thursday Night Football is on, and it's only on Prime Video.
Brilliant, just brilliant.
This week, the West Coast action heats up when the Rams meet the Seahawks in a huge divisional showdown. Coverage begins at 7 p.m. Eastern with football's best party, TNF Tonight, presented by Verizon. And don't miss the Broncos and Chiefs on Christmas night. It's Thursday Night Football, only on Prime Video. Not a Prime member? Not a problem. Simply sign up for a 30-day free trial. Restrictions apply. See Amazon.com/Amazon Prime for details.
No, thank you. Yeah, that's a lot of my mentors have been in general internal medicine or internal medicine, so it makes a lot of sense.
So now, even though I just said this, is that you kind of hinted at neurosurgery, if I heard you correctly? Is that what you want to do your residency in, neurosurgery? Or what do you want to do? What does your gut say? What do you want to be so far?
What I want to be when I grow up? That's a very tough question. What gets me excited the most is the brain, how the brain works. I mean, that's what we started, a learning company. We started an education company. I've loved education. How do we get people to learn? And a lot of this is also, how do we treat patients? And a lot of treating patients, from what I've seen, again, not tertiary, is preventative. It's how do you teach them what a good diet is? How do you teach them to do preventive screenings? What the heck is LDL versus ApoB? Those kind of things. And so I'm very passionate about education and psych neuro. Internal medicine may be the right way to go, but like the reason I love, one of the main reasons I've gone back to Hopkins in particular, is because they have really good neuro and psych research, and again, psychedelics, if we talk about it. So if I were to snap my fingers, that's probably the route I'd go.
All right. You know what? I'm still going to love you no matter what you pick. But
I appreciate that.
Well, hey, I want to kind of switch gears a little bit, because there were some things in your bio that I really don't know much about, and I'm always humble about it. So maybe you could tell my audience and me about it. So the smartphone physical, it debuted at TEDMED. That sounds so kick butt. Oh my God. What is it? Can you explain it to me?
Yeah, I mean, so about a decade ago, they were starting to, the iPhone was a couple years old, but there were starting to be these auxiliary devices strapped to the iPhone, right? So like there was I used to write for this blog called Med Gadget, where I got to review some of these devices. And so everything from, you plug in a pulse ox into your iPhone, you can get your pulse ox, to an ophthalmoscope, where like, rather than just like, hey, look at this, like, and then you hand it off to your student to look at it, look at somebody's retina, you can literally plug your iPhone into an ophthalmoscope and then take a picture of the retina.
Nice.
Smartphone ultrasound. And so we asked the question, could you do a full physical exam with a smartphone and a few of these devices? And so it was kind of a cool, simple question, but it wound up becoming this big, actually wound up spinning off into a company too. And led to an academic paper that this physician, Eric Topol, who I don't know if you've heard of Eric Topol.
It sounds super familiar. I mean, who is Eric? One of your mentors in this?
He's been a mentor. Yeah. He started the Cleveland Clinic Lerner College of Medicine. He runs the Scripps Translational Institute. A really famous cardiologist who's written several books on, including one, The Patient Will See You Now. Anyways, he and I wrote a paper for academic medicine about how these smartphone devices could be used not only for physicals and clinical care, but also for medical education. How do we improve medical education through these devices. So anyways, that was a kind of a tangent in my career. And one like broader thing from the bio that I'll point out to anyone listening is I think we go, me naturally, but I think a lot of people go through these periods of being expansive, explore versus exploit is in terms of like there's periods where you're exploring and like you're doing a lot of things. So in that 3-year period, starting Osmosis, the patient promise, and smartphone physical, and then ultimately that was all exploration. Ultimately, I honed in on Osmosis and then focused on that for some years. And then since Elsevier bought us, I've sort of been back in explore mode. Med school, psychedelics, AI, obviously the stuff at Osmosis. But eventually there'll be another focus area.
Wow. All right. So I want to ask about something that I mentioned once again, called the patient promise. And so it sounds like a movement to improve clinician-patient relationship through partnership in pursuing healthy lifestyle behaviors. Can you just kind of break it down, make it really simple and palatable? So what is the patient promise,
Yeah, it was an oath, or like kind of a Hippocratic oath type thing that anyone, a med student, nursing student, practicing professional could take, and essentially came out of research at the Hopkins School of Public Health that showed that clinicians who practice what they preach are more credible when they advise their patients on lifestyle changes. So, for example, a pulmonologist like yourself, who's if you were to smoke, would be much less credible in giving your patients advice not to smoke. So, and then fundamentally, we want our providers to be healthy. We want them to, they're humans. First and foremost, clinicians are humans. Let's incentivize them and motivate them to take care of put their own oxygen mask on first. And some of them require the research that, hey, look, don't even do it for yourself, do it for your patients. And that's essentially what the patient promise was. And it's been a very active thing I've been interested in for a long time. My own personal health as a med student or CEO. And one of the main reasons, again, I've gone back to med school and focused in on things like psychedelics is because we have a mental health crisis for everyone, but especially in healthcare, where clinicians are burned out, they're depressed, they're committing suicide. How can we help these clinicians practice longer? Because with Osmosis, it's one thing to get more clinicians trained, but if it's a leaky bucket, it's another thing, if you're losing a bunch of them too in the process and they aren't practicing as long as they could be if they had their sense of purpose and were healthy and whatnot. So it's definitely a passion area of mine.
So I'm going to go curveball question because, we spoke a little bit about burnout in my podcast with you. And now, let me ask you this, having someone who is a mature med student who's been around and seen many things, when you're with your attendings now and other people in the healthcare profession, do you see the burnout through your eyes, and are people addressing it appropriately, or do you feel that there's not enough resources out there? And what is your hope to help people who, meaning physicians and other healthcare professionals who have burnout?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely see it. There's evidence all over, ranging from, the listless lectures or, clinical training you can get for some people who are clearly burned out to ultimately patient care, right? A burned out clinician is not necessarily providing the best patient care that they could be. And I think it's systemic. It's clearly a systemic issue. Practice in medicine is very difficult. The requirements on clinicians is even harder. I know I was talking to someone whose brother's a clinician, and they spent the entire weekend responding to patient text messages and notes, right? Like now that you're always on because you have telehealth, chat messages, you have patient generated health records, when do you rest? You have all this stuff with insurance, it's very demotivating. So I'm excited about new models of healthcare delivery, ranging from One Medical, which is, kind of upending primary care delivery through a more consumer-centric, patient-centric model that hopefully will scale further, to value-based models of healthcare that align incentives between clinicians and the patients and the health system. So I think those systemic changes are needed first. On the last podcast, we talked a lot about AI. I'm pretty bullish on AI. I think AI will help reduce a lot of the clinical burden and administrative burden that clinicians go through, and hopefully improve the number of types of clinicians we can be hiring, diversify the workforce, because we aren't just selecting for the people who got the highest organic chemistry score on their MCAT, but we're selecting for people who are the most passionate and joyful, when they help other people, patients, and just the general public. So I think those are the core things that'll help with burnout and mortal injury. But then on the side, I think there are these things that we really should be promoting from an early age: nutrition, sleep, which you're an expert in, lifestyle changes, exercise. And I think Hopkins and many other med schools recognize this and are doing a better job of that kind of stuff. But again, that's, I feel like, a bit of a band-aid when the artery is bleeding.
Yeah, no, great answer. And, I got 3 more questions, so I want to make sure I ask them all of them. Now, I'm looking at you, and you don't see it, but above you, it says Osmosis from Elsevier. So my question to you is, this Osmosis is kind of your baby. I am so proud you've started that company. It changed many med students and other healthcare professionals' lives. How was it kind of like now being, kind of passing the baton to Elsevier? How was that transition? How did you feel not being the super dad anymore? You know what I mean?
I actually, you never know until you go through it, because I heard from other founder friends who've sold their companies who are, upset that they had to report to somebody now, or like the decisions being made they don't agree with, or it's not their baby anymore, right? They have to adhere to the overall company policies. For context, we went from a 100-person company at Osmosis to 9,000-person company at Elsevier. And so, it's very easy to feel like the small fish in a big ocean, but honestly, it's been wonderful. Elsevier, our mutual friend Jim Merritt is an example of someone who is deeply passionate about medical education, has committed his life to it. And with the stability of a large company like Elsevier, we can just do what's right for our learners. Elsevier has been extremely helpful in scaling our vision. The vision of Osmosis is everyone who cares for someone will learn by osmosis, right? Not just the med student passing the boards or the clinician doing CME credits, but the patient. We have thousands of patient comments who've watched our videos because their son has autism, their mother has diabetes, whatever, they're watching our videos. And that motivates me a lot. Now at Elsevier, they already have relationships with 2,500 health systems. And, they can get us, I've had meetings with Walgreens, with CVS, with Walmart, with, Geisinger and several other health systems. And the scale we can achieve being part of a larger company that's been around 140 years has been wonderful. The stability it's given us with our team to do the right thing. I've traveled. One of my favorite things to do since the acquisition has been to actually go meet students and faculty all over the world who have learned or teach by Osmosis. And before I used to do this, I'd go to Hong Kong or something for a conference, and it would just be me, the only Osmosis person. Now, when I went to Portugal or when I went to Thailand, meeting Osmosis learners, I was met by an Elsevier person who, in some cases picked me up from the airport, or already had a bunch of relationships. So it's been really wonderful. The CEO of Elsevier is a woman named Kumsal. It's been a great mentor, as has the president of health. His name's Jan Herzog. This full of great people who've been very supportive, and they were supportive of my decision to go back to med school too, partially because I'm getting my medical degree hopefully by using Osmosis and Elsevier products, including yours.
Thank you. You know what? If I ever see you reading one of my books, I would love it. I might just tears of joy. You know what I mean? Because
I'll send you a picture.
Oh, please do. And I would just say this, the few times I got a chance to teach for other companies in different countries, it is such a awesome feeling when you know that you influence someone in Europe or in Africa or in India, because I just think of myself as tiny little Raj who lives in Southern California watching my Star Wars movies. But when someone says something nice about you in a different country, oh my God. So I love that you had that experiences, So totally. Let me ask you, I got 2 more questions to ask. There was a contest, and I think this is one of the things that how Jim got me to plug into you, and it was something called the Osmosis Founder Diffusion and Innovation Prize. Can you explain what that is? You know what I mean? And I got to tell you, I went to the website. It wasn't, I didn't understand it completely, so I wanted to understand what is the prize and how do you do to get it? And can you tell my listeners if it's still going on? How do you register for it?
Yeah, so it's part of my group called Ganglia Ventures I mentioned.
Okay.
So right after Elsevier acquired Osmosis, I launched this scholarship. My sister and I launched a scholarship named after our parents, who are fortunately still healthy and alive, for high school students in Florida, in our county, Brevard County, and also named after my high school, West Shore High School. So we wanted to start being, we've always been philanthropic and donating to causes, but now let's get this together and make some real prizes around this. And so that was a $10,000 scholarship, which we handed out earlier this year to several students and faculty or teachers, really high school teachers. This year I launched the Osmosis Founder Diffusion Innovation Prize because I knew I'm going back to med school. I'm not going to be able to affect change at Osmosis or Elsevier the way I have been traditionally because I was running the show at Osmosis for a long time. And so I wanted to inspire two things. One is the diffusion of Osmosis because I love it so much. I wanted to see if students had, could reach out and we could collaborate to get Osmosis in front of more people. Patients, we've collaborated with companies like 23andMe, have done videos on genetic education with us. And so if these med students or nursing students had contacts at these organizations, just put us in touch and let's help Osmosis diffuse to as many people as possible. Number two is Innovation Prize. So I've met countless med students and doctors and nursing professionals, pre-nursing, who are innovative and entrepreneurial. And I wanted to give them an opportunity to apply to a prize and get mentorship from me, my family, to get some money. It was $10,000 of prizes. And, I had a particular bent towards AI. How are we using AI to improve things, as you can imagine? And so that competition ended July 1st. Okay. My family office is going through the applications now, and we'll hope we got hundreds of applications. So it's going to take a little while to sort through all that. And hopefully we'll make those announcements in the fall.
And we were supposed to do this podcast earlier, but you were in Europe, and I'm like, that's why you're my rogue med student. I'm like, how is my med student in Europe all of a sudden, But I can understand it. But that sounds awesome. It really, really does. So, my last question, I got to tell you, this went by much quicker than I thought. So my last question is this, Shiv, first, let me just say, I think you're really well spoken. I think you are still just amazing hybrid medical student that I think it's just a title that I call you medical student because everything out of your mouth shows a maturity beyond your years. I'm not just saying that to, make you feel warm and fuzzy. You do hold yourself well, and I can see why you're an entrepreneur. So I just want to comment on that.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
It means a lot coming from you because I love, again, the authenticity and what you do. So it does mean a lot. So.
You just want to come visit me here and just give me a big hug. You want to.
I absolutely do. No, I'd love to come out to LA and vice versa if ever you're in Baltimore.
You got it. So my last question is this, Shiv, any encouraging words or advice for future medical students or healthcare professionals? What would you say coming from you?
Well, I really loved the advice you gave, which obviously is, self-awareness, understanding yourself. The sooner you can get there through making friends or family or through, or through reading or through other mechanisms, the closer you can get to that self-knowledge, the more leverage you'll get because you'll make decisions that will influence the rest of your career. But the flip side of that I want to make it clear, and I've shared this with all my mentees and all students who reach out, is don't be afraid to zigzag. Clearly my career and many others, I've had countless people on my podcast, people like Dr. Lisa Sanders, who's a Yale internist, writes the diagnosis column, which became a Netflix docuseries, she started med school at 37 after a full career as a TV journalist before starting at 37. One of my med school classmates, the first time I was in med school, was a 41-year-old immigrant electrician who had to work through and support his family as he was doing his post-bac. So really don't be afraid of zigzagging. I think that actually winds up making for a very interesting career path. And in the spirit of Ganglia, if you spent 10 years as an electrician or a mechanic, there's a 52-year-old mechanic in Ohio who was a mechanic for 30 years before going to med school. If you take that experience you get as a mechanic or an electrician or an entrepreneur in my case, or a TV journalist in Lisa Sanders' case, and you mishmash that with your medical experience, something beautiful could come out of it, something unexpected. something novel and something that just really brings you joy, which ultimately, if it makes you joyful and passionate about the work you do, it's going to make everyone else around you joyful and passionate as well, or at least contribute to their joy and passion. So I would say self-knowledge first, but in the absence of that, and if you get self-knowledge a couple of years later, don't be afraid to make changes.
I love that. And I think that, once again, that's well said. And I applied to myself, where it's kind of like, I wish I'd said this when you interviewed me, is that, yeah, there is the medicine, but there is, hey, where did, I love doing entertainment. I love doing a podcast. I love doing this. And you're right. If I connect my dots, sometimes it is a zigzag, you know what I mean? But it's always headed in the right direction. So thanks. That was a great answer. I love that one. Hey, Shiv, just promise me one thing. Sure. I don't know when, but let's team up on something, okay? Whether it's a chapter in a book or me making a cameo in one of your videos. I just feel it's our destiny to do something together,
I would agree. I love that. I mean, again, like actually spending time with you on a live podcast, having a conversation, they say a picture's worth 1,000 words. A live podcast is probably worth 1,000,000. And I think I would love that. I would be honored to be able to work with you on something. So we'll follow up on that.
You're the best, man. Well, thank you so much for being here, Shiv. You are totally awesome. And thanks again.
Thank you, Dr. Raj. Good to see you.
All right. Well, anyway, everyone, that is the Dr. Raj podcast for today. I hope everyone enjoyed it. We had, as you could tell, an amazing guest. And I'll see everyone again in a few weeks.
Thanks for listening. This has been a production of Ars Longa Media. Our producers are Madison Linden and Chris Brightigan. Our executive producer is Dr. Patrick Beeman. This podcast is for educational purposes only and not intended for medical advice. Ars Longa, Vita Brevis.